everyone, and welcome to this video on solving equations containing fractions. Now, fractions are probably one of the scariest things that math students encounter in a math course. Students tell me all the time that they're scared of fractions, they don't understand them. So one thing that you can really sort of understand about fractions is that fractions are literally just division. So in other words, 1 over 2, that's the fraction 1/2, is the same as 1 divided by 2. So if I have, let's say, one Snickers bar, pretend this is a Snickers bar, right, and I have two people and I want to share it evenly, I'm literally just dividing it in half. So that means that you get half of it and I get half of it. We each get 1/2. So again, fractions divisions are exactly the same thing. Now, there are many different correct ways to solve algebraic equations that involve fractions, and most instructors or videos that you're going to see are going to show you probably a different way than I'm going to suggest. I'm going to try to show you the shortest, fastest, most efficient way that's going to get you to the answer the fastest, and then also will minimize human error, because again, we're all human, we make mistakes, it happens. So these are the steps that I recommend. So the first thing is to apply the distributive property if needed. If you recall from multi-step equations, that was our first step in those as well. Here, there's no parentheses, there's nothing to distribute. So the next thing is the LCD, the dreaded LCD. Well, what is LCD? What does that stand for? Well, LCD, quite simply, stands for the least common denominator. Okay, and I'll develop this idea in later sections, but in later examples rather. But in this problem, it's pretty simple because there is only one denominator. We're only dividing by one number, and of course, that's 7. Okay, so we're going to find the LCD. Well, that was easy, right? There's only one number downstairs, and that number is a 7. So then it says to multiply by the LCD to eliminate all fractions. What gets multiplied by 7? Everything. Everything on both sides of the equation. So if you recall from my previous videos, I always like to draw that vertical line there. Okay, so we're multiplying this side by 7, and we're multiplying this by 7. Now, some people, when we do this, get a little bit confused about, for example, some people want to do 7 times -2, which is -14, and then they want to do 7 times 7, which is 49. And they get confused, and rightly so. So 7 is the numerator. If it makes you feel more comfortable, if it helps you, you can rewrite it as 7 over 1. And then that can help you realize, oh, we're just multiplying across. So we're going to do 7 times -2, multiply across, that's going to give me -14. Then we do 1 times 7 on the bottom, and that gives me a 7. So I still have my x, of course, and then 4 times 7, or 4 over 1 times 7 over 1, of course, is 28 over 1, or just 28. Okay, so now let's look at what our coefficient is for x. So you can literally just type this into your calculator. Type in -14 divided by 7, because remember that fraction is just division. It's just a different way of expressing division. So what is -14 divided by 7? Well, it's -2. So I'm going to erase this because it's in my way. So we have -2x equals 28. So check it out, guys. In one step, in one single step, I have gone to a scary equation with fractions to a much less scary equation with 0 fractions. Okay, and hopefully you can see this is a one-step equation. I need to get rid of that -2, which is attached to the x by multiplication. I undo multiplication by dividing, and so we find that x is equal to -14. Okay, and of course, as always, we can check our work. So our original equation was -2/7 x, so that would be -2/7 times -14 equals 4. -2 times -14 is +28. 7 times 1, remember -14 is the same as -14 over 1, so we would have 7 times 1, which is 7. And in fact, 28 over 7 is 4. 4 equals 4, so this checks out. Okay? Alright, so let's look at this next example. So we have 3x plus x equals 4. So the first thing our directions tell us to do is to apply the distributive property. We don't have any parentheses here, so we don't need to do that. So then we'll just skip to the next step, which is to find and multiply by the LCD. So remember, the LCD stands for least common denominator, and if we look at this, we only have one denominator anywhere, And so our least common denominator is our only denominator, which in this case is 4. Okay, so our LCD is 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply every single term on the left and right side of this equation by 4. So I'm going to write this out so I can use, I like to use different colors to emphasize things. So here we have times 4, here we have times 4, here we have times 4. Of course, there's a plus sign here. Okay, now again, sometimes people get confused when they're multiplying a fraction by a whole number. So for example, they might look at 3x or 3/4 x times 4, and they might want to write like 16, sorry, not 16. They might be tempted to write 12x over 16, right? But that's not how it works. And to help you remember not to do that, you can rewrite 4 as 4 over 1. Right, so again, you can write the LCD as 4, you can write it as 4 over 1 if that helps you remember not to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 4. Remember, 4 over 1 is the same as 4 divided by 1. So think about if you buy 4 pizzas and you have to divide them amongst one person, which is yourself, then guess what, y'all? You get to eat 4 pizzas. It's a good day for you. Okay, you don't have to share. That's what that means. Okay, so 3x times 4 divided by 4, that's 12x over 4, or just 3x. Okay, another way to think about it is that these 4's are canceling out. Okay, 4 times x is 4x, 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, so now we have multiplied everything by the LCD, which is 4, or 4 over 1, to eliminate all of our fractions. So now, remember in the last problem, I said, proceed as normal. That was step 4. And what I've done for us in this and the following problems is to actually just write out the steps so that we can remember them. So this is asking us to combine like terms. 3 plus 4 is 7, so we have 7x is equal to 16. And then all that remains, right, we already have all of our variables on one side, we have our constants on the other side, so now we just have to isolate the variable by dividing both sides by 7. So we have x is equal to 16 over 7. Okay, so what about checking our work? Well, let's try it. So we have 3/4 times 16 over 7 plus 16 over 7 equals 4. Okay, now you can do whatever you want. For me personally, I am going to divide before I multiply. So 16 divided by 4 is 4. So I have 3 times 4 is 12. So I have 12 over 7 plus 16 over 7 is equal to 4. So then 12 plus 16 is 28. Okay, so we have 28 over 7 is equal to 4. Well, 28 over 7 is 4, so 4 is equal to 4. So if you forget how to, add, subtract, multiply, and divide by fractions, I will add some links in your learning management system so that you can review those if you would like. But again, the reason we're using this LCD method is so that we can eliminate our fractions in one step and make this a lot easier and simpler for ourselves. Let's do another example. Okay, this time we have 5/8x equals -1/3. Okay, we don't have anything to distribute, so then we can just find the LCD. Okay, now I want to talk about the L in LCD. This is the least common denominator, right? That's what the L stands for, the smallest one. Okay, so if you're elementary school or middle school, whenever you learn fractions, if it was anything like mine, you spent so long learning what is the smallest, what is the least common denominator, okay? But I want to suggest to you that we can get rid of the L. We can find any common denominator, guys, anything that is divisible by both 8 and 3, and it's still going to work, okay? Now, the least common denominator in this problem happens to be 8 times 3, which is 24. But even if that weren't the case, and I'll show you this in other problems, I can still do that. I can still just multiply all the denominators together and then eliminate my fractions. Okay, so let's go ahead and multiply everything by 24. Remember, we can also write it as 24 over 1, so we don't get confused. So let's write 5/8x equals -1/3. I'll switch to a different color ink. So this is times 24 over 1 times 24 over 1. Okay, so 24 divided by 8 is 3. 3 times 5 is 15, so I have 15x over here. 24 divided by 3 is 8. -1 times 8 is -8. Last but not least, I have to divide both sides by 15. I get x equals negative 8 over 15. Okay, and if we go back to our steps, there were not any like terms to combine. I didn't need to do step 5 or 6. All I really needed to do was isolate my variable. Okay, so let's check our work. So we have 5/8 times negative 8 over 15 equals negative 1/3. So remember, your 8's can cancel out. So you have a negative 1 here. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. So we have negative 5 over 15 is equal to negative 1/3. Well, lo and behold, negative 5 over 15, if I reduce it by dividing the top and the bottom by 3, I get negative 1/3. So this checks out. Okay, so again, this is our final answer, and this is our check.